Hello 8th graders. We are going to revise activity 4, which is specific immune response. As we say before, specific immune response is divided into two parts. They are the cell-mediated specific immune response and the humoral specific immune response. Now we will talk about the cell-mediated specific immune response graft rejection. Here there is an autograft of a skin tissue. The skin tissue graft appears pink and smooth. The skin graft succeeds. Whereas in an allograft skin tissue, which is grafting from one individual into another within the same species, the skin tissue graft appears dark and rough. This skin graft fails. The cells that are responsible for attacking the grafted cells or foreign cells are the T lymphocytes. They are attracted and activated by the macrophages. T lymphocytes rush toward the foreign graft cells, adhere to their membrane, and perforate them. T lymphocytes kill the non-self cells. Because of that, they are called killer cells. T lymphocytes are the major effectors of graft rejection, which is therefore a cell-mediated specific immune response. Humoral specific immune response, blood transfusion rejection. The blood groups are blood group A, B, AB, and O. The individuals having a blood group A should have agglutinogens A. These agglutinogens are antigens on the surface of the red blood cells, and they have in their plasma antibodies B or agglutinin B. Blood group B have agglutinogens B and antibody A or agglutinin A in the plasma. The individuals with blood group AB have two kinds of agglutinogens on the surface of the red blood cells, and they have no antibodies in the plasma. Whereas an individual with blood group O have no agglutinogens on the surface of the red blood cells, whereas in the plasma there are two kinds of antibodies, antibody A and antibody B. And individuals who have a certain agglutinin cannot receive red blood cells that carry corresponding agglutinogens. An individual, a patient, or a recipient which has agglutinin, for example, agglutinin A, cannot receive red blood cells carrying agglutinogen A because an agglutination reaction will take place, a binding between the agglutinogen A and agglutinin A will take place. If agglutination reaction occurs, then the blood transfusion fails. If agglutination takes place, if binding between the agglutinin and the agglutinogen takes place, then the blood transfusion fails. If agglutination reaction does not occur, and there is no binding between the antibodies of the plasma and the received red blood cells, then the blood transfusion succeeds. In blood transfusion, the effectors are the plasma antibodies, the innate plasma antibodies, then the immune response is a humoral specific immune response. Let's solve together these questions. A patient or a recipient of a blood group B receives blood from a donor of a blood group A. The donor will give the patient only the red blood cells, not the agglutinins. Is the blood transfusion successful? Justify. If agglutination occurs, then the blood transfusion is failed. If agglutination doesn't occur, then the blood transfusion is successful. The patient is of blood group B, has agglutinin A. In the patient or the recipient, we look for the antibodies or agglutinin. Blood group B has agglutinin A. The patient will receive the red blood cells from the donor. The agglutinogens of the red blood cells of the donor are of type A also. In the donor, we look for the agglutinogens. In the recipient, we look for the agglutinin. A binding between agglutinogens of the donor and the agglutinin will occur. Agglutination reaction takes place, then the blood transfusion. Now draw a diagram representing agglutination reaction, of course, between agglutinin A and agglutinogens A. We write a title for this diagram. This diagram represents agglutination reaction between agglutinin A and agglutinogens A. We draw some red blood cells having agglutinogens A and antibodies of type A and the binding between them. The type of immune response is a humoral specific immune response since the effectors are the antibodies of the plasma. At last, blood group O is a universal donor. Since the red blood cells don't have agglutinogens, there is no risk of agglutination reaction between these red blood cells and any type of antibodies or agglutinins. Blood group AB is a universal recipient. It can take red blood cells from any donor since it doesn't have any agglutinin. This means that no agglutination reaction will take place. Thanks for your attention.